So hello and welcome to our Festival of Computing. I'm Shirley Atkinson and I'm Head of Computing here at the University of Plymouth, and I'm the host for the session today. I'm accompanied by Vivian, who's our student ambassador, who's helping to moderate the session and just monitoring the questions window. And so I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Rory Hopcraft and Julia Humphreys, our speakers for today. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a couple of things. So in terms of housekeeping, during the session, can I ask you to use the chat window, please? You should usually find that on the right-hand side of your screen or something like that. You can use that to ask the questions. That'd be lovely. You might need to click on the chat icon to open that. And Vivian will be taking a note of the questions posted there, and we'll try and make sure that we can answer the questions if time allows. If I can remind all attendees to have their microphones muted and be in the listening mode only. There will be a copy of today's slides going into the UCAS download area for you, and all attendees will get an email a little bit later after the event to have you access the materials that you can. And finally, the hashtag for this event is #CasPlim21. So please tweet. If you tweet, please tweet. Okay, so with that, I'd like to hand over to Rory. Over to you.
I'll share my screen, just make sure everybody can see it. There we go. Hi, so I'm Rory. I'm a researcher based at the University of Plymouth. I work within the Maritime Cyber Threats Research Group. So I get to have some fun seeing what sort of weaknesses and vulnerabilities there are in ship systems, and get to have some fun breaking them as well. So in today's sort of short activity, it's going to expand on some of the topics I spoke about in the cryptography talk if you joined us just in the previous session. And it's just going to sort of give you an overview of a model crypto system and sort of how you use them to encrypt and decrypt messages. So word of warning, if you've got a pen and paper to hand, you probably want to grab one. It'd be quicker and easier to use pen and paper than trying to do it on a Word document, etc. It's great when we use so much technology and we're talking about a really technical thing and we want to use the old physical pen and paper. So there are a couple of crypto systems we're going to have a look at in this quick activity. They're very, very basic. They're both symmetric, which basically means you use the same key to decrypt and use the same key to encrypt and decrypt. They only use alphabetic characters, so your normal A to Z, so they're not exactly very secure, which does make them not suitable for modern use. They're good fun to have a play around with, but you definitely wouldn't see any of these in any modern systems or security processes. But they do sort of illustrate how a basic model crypto system works, and also some of the design principles that need to be taken into consideration when developing sort of crypto systems. So the first one that we're going to look at is the Caesar cipher. So this one is probably the earliest known and the simplest of all ciphers, believed to date back to ancient Roman times. And it's what's called a basic substitution cipher. So each letter is swapped for another in a corresponding pattern. And with the Caesar cipher, that basically means that every letter is shifted by so many places one way. So as you can see from the little line below, you can see the plain alphabet A through to Z on the top line. In the second line is what the ciphertext letters would be on a shift of 2. So that means that A basically moves along 2 places, so A becomes C, B is D, C is B, and that would be how we encrypt the message. So we use the shift of 2 for a Caesar cipher. So our plain text there is the phrase "too easy," just because this is too easy to break. And using a Caesar cipher, what we would do is we'd look up the plain text letter of T on the top row and the corresponding letter for ciphertext below, which in this case is R. Then the next letter is O, so we would look at O, which gives us M. Obviously there's 2 O's, so it would be M and M. So you can start to see actually this is quite a weak system in that sense, because letters encode to the same letter every time if they're using the same shift. So moving all the way through our little phrase, we have the ciphertext there of R, M, M, C, Y, Q, W. And to decrypt that, the inverse would be exactly, to decrypt it is exactly the same, just in the inverse process. So you would take the letter R, look it up on the ciphertext line, which is the bottom line, and map that back up to the T. And you would decrypt it letter by letter that way as well. So the first little exercise, what I want you to do is, you've got that phrase there, 3 separate words there. Try and decipher that, decrypt that using the Caesar cipher below. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And I say it's just done letter by letter. And while you do that, I sort of try and talk through some of the principles with these kind of crypto systems. So obviously, as you can see by this system, is as long as everybody knows the number of shifts that the letter is going, anybody can decrypt the message. That's what makes it symmetric. So it isn't very secure, and it is only shifting everything by a certain number of spaces. And obviously that number of spaces is limited by the total number of letters in the alphabet. So in theory, there are only 25, 26, including the normal plain text variants that you can use here. So in theory, it wouldn't necessarily be that hard to break a crypto system like this. And I'll touch on that in a little bit in a moment, once you've had another minute or so, just to see if you can start to decrypt the message there. But these are, these are quite simple codes. Being able just to send a message in this way, and then be able to send somebody also the number of shifts is quite simple. You can sort of go back to sort of days of sort of the spies reading the newspapers and finding these kind of things in the classified ads, being able to pass messages secretly between each other. Excellent. So some people are starting to put in the chat. The first one is wrong. So what you've done, unfortunately, is, yep. So there's more people starting to get the right answer in the chat. Yep, loads of you now. So I'll move forward. So yep, the correct answer is crypto is fun. So again, it's just important to remember that you're using, the bottom line. If you've got the code, you're looking up what G is in the bottom line and mapping that backwards. Okay, so as I said, breaking Caesar cipher, it is probably one of the most simple ciphers to break. And that is because there is only so many shifts because of the number of letters. And a shift of 0 or a shift of 26 would just map A on A and Z on Z. So it wouldn't be any change at all. So it is very, very simple. You can do what's called a brute force, which is where you try every single combination of the shifts and see which one yields real words. And that's as simple as it is. But you can do a little bit more fun with it. You can have a little bit of fun. And this is what we can call frequency distribution. So this is where we look at the language that the message is in. So in this case, in English, and we can start to look at what the most common letters are used in the alphabet. So obviously, as you can see by that graph there, E is by far the most common. A lot of English words contain the letter E, but then also letters like Q and Z are very uncommon. We don't have many words, particularly Z, in the English language that use Z. So if you look at the original message, this one, you can see here we've got 2 O's that map by M. So that means that if you look through for common letters in the ciphertext, and there's a lot, the highest percentage of those are, say, the letters F, you can start to work out, well, maybe F is what E is in plain text. So then that could be the first shift that you would look at, is what shift gives you E coming out as the letter F, and then decrypt other parts of it and see if you get real words out of it. If not, try the next most frequent one, and you can start breaking them like that. But there are also other ways of doing it. So again, in the English languages, there are common letters that come out together. So TH is quite common, or QU. You know, all English words with the letter Q will have the letter U afterwards. So if you start seeing the same two letters following each other, you may start be able to pick up a pattern that actually this could be what they look for. You know, this is what it looks at. Especially as you also know the distance between the letter H and the letter T in the normal alphabet. If the ciphertext combination that's common of those pairs also matches those shifts, it's quite probable that that is actually the shift that you're looking for. And there are other words as well. And the things like that pop up that we use in the English language are quite common. So one of the advances you can do with the C cipher is by actually removing some of those, you know, conjunctions, those joining words to actually help hide what you're doing. But this way of looking for key phrases and common phrases is how they actually worked out what Enigma was. It because they knew that there were like common phrases like nothing to report, or certain weather phrases, or Hail Hitler at the end of messages. You know, it allowed British cryptanalysis during World War II to be able to start looking for those phrases and using that as the plain text that they're looking for when they ran it through their decryption. Obviously, say this is weak, so how can we make it stronger? Well, what we can do is we can increase the complexity of it, so increase, say, the key length of it. And what we'll do here is we'll call what's called the Vigenère cipher. And what this does is this takes every possible variation of the Caesar cipher shifts. So it's mapped like this in the graph. So as you see, the first line is A through to Z. The next line shifts it all along. So A becomes B, C becomes D, and all the way down as well. So the final one is A becomes Z. And what you then do is you take your plain text phrase, so in this case, attack at dawn. You then select a keyword. So this is rather than taking a number between 1 and 25 for your shifts, you take a keyword. In this case, great, you can use any length word. The shorter word increases repetition. The longer the word reduces the repetition, but they both have weaknesses because they're easier to guess. Whereas with this, a middle length word, 5-letter, 6-letter word gives you a good one. Oh, somebody's drawn on the, oh, thank you. And then what you do is you then take that keyword and multiple it as many times as you need to do so that your character length is the same as the length of your plain text. So attack at dawn has 12 characters. So your grape has 5, so you would repeat grape twice, plus the extra 2 for GR. That would give you an encryption string. Then to encrypt, somebody's drawing on the presentation. Thank you. So to encrypt that message, what you would do is you take your first letter of your plain text, A, look along the top column for A, highlighted there now. Then you would take your first letter of your encryption string, in this case, G, and you look at what that maps across to. That would give you the letter G. Yep. Next one is T, and R from your encryption string gives you the letter K. Now, importantly here, when we looked at the original Caesar cipher, any of the same letter in the plain text will always map to the same letter in the ciphertext. However, because of the way we're using this encryption string, and each character is mapped to a different letter, a corresponding letter, it means the second T from your plain text, which is the third character, maps to the third character of your encryption string. So rather than going to R, it now goes to A, which then gives us the letter T. Obviously, that does match what's in the plain text, but when it's all jumbled up into a complete cipher string, it's much harder to know that is actually what the letter is. So the next part of what I want you to do is take the rest of that phrase and encrypt that in using the Vigenère cipher. So again, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. So again, as you can see here, you know, it's much harder now for somebody to start working out what this what the plain text would be from your ciphertext. Because you're using an unknown number, it's easier than a 1 through to 25. You know, there are many, many words in the English language. But you also don't have to limit it by using English language words. You could start making up your own character strings. As long as that encryption string, the keyword is known by both parties, they can create the encryption string to be able to decrypt it. So again, it's still reliant on a secret that is known by both, so it's still symmetric. But it's much harder to do. The only weakness with this system is that actually you can start picking up some of those keywords, some of the starting letters or letters that may map the same way. Somebody has got the answer on the slide. I'm just checking what it is. Okay, yeah, so somebody's put a suggestion in the box. I won't say whether it's right or not. I'll give everybody just another 30, 40 seconds just to try and work it out. Yeah, another guess. As I said at the beginning, none of these systems are used in modern crypto systems. But these are fun ways to try, sort of see what encryption is. But it also just sort of highlights, if you were in the talk that I gave earlier on encryption, you understand, I demonstrated that a basic model is, you've got a sender and a receiver of information, and the basic crypto system is the sender is just using an encryption algorithm to scramble the letters of the message, send it over to somebody who can unscramble it. And it just means that anybody that is listening into that communication isn't seeing the plain text, they're only seeing the ciphertext. And the Caesar cipher, the Vigenère cipher is just a very simple ways of demonstrating that. Okay, so so there's a few responses in the chat now, and all of those, as far as I can tell, are all correct. So the response you're actually looking for is that one there at the bottom. And as I say, the important thing here is, you've developed the crypto system that slightly bit further, because it means now that it's the simple Caesar cipher mapped the same letter in the plain text to the same letter in the ciphertext. Whereas in this method, you don't get that. Because of the repeating way, the way that it scrolls through the encryption string gives you a different letter each time. And that is basically what the Enigma machine, the Enigma machine, the Enigma code did during World War II, where each time you pressed a button, the dial rotated one, so it always changed. It was constantly changing. But no, so that is the answer. Well done, everybody, if you got that right. I say that was kind of it. It was just a real whistle-stop sort of activity on cryptography, sort of just a practical way to demonstrate what crypto systems are and how they work. So thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Rory. Thank you for that. Are there any very quick questions at all? If there are, please pop them in the chat. Okay, well, perhaps we'll keep an eye on the chat window as we go ahead. So I'm delighted to hand over to Julia. Julia, over to you.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Shirley. Okay, so Rory, that was really fascinating, and it's kind of cemented a little bit more what I've learned at our Deloitte Cyber Day, where we took some 40 students down to their Cyber Intelligence Centre down in Reading. And what went on then, I didn't understand, but now seeing what you've done, that's really helped me. So anyway, today I'm going to be talking to you all about the different cyber courses that Qufaro offer. We have 4 different courses. Sorry, I'll get my presentation up. There we go. So we offer 4 different courses. We have our accredited cyber EPQ. We also have a Head Start and Foundation course, as well as free cybersecurity training for teachers. So what is the cyber EPQ? The cyber EPQ was developed to bridge the gap between GCSE in computer science and entrance level at university. Prior to the cyber EPQ, there wasn't anything that students could study in cybersecurity. And so we went along to education specialists and to cyber experts and found what was needed by the industry for young people to learn. So we've come up with the Cyber EPQ. It's aligned with the Chartered Institute of Information Security Skills Framework. It's worth up to 28 UCAS points. It's also accredited by by City and Guilds, and it's delivered nationally online, which especially at this time is incredibly helpful. We were very fortunate last year, despite being plunged into the COVID pandemic in March and close to the end of finishing, all of our students were given the opportunity, should they wish to defer, or a great majority of them continued, and we had amazing results. We have 11 modules here. I won't read through them. The slides are available for you. And also we're very happy to offer you guest Moodle access so that you can investigate on your own time. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about how the Cyber EPQ course is structured. So I probably hear a few of you saying EPQ, that's independent study. It shouldn't be anything that's taught. However, we have this specially designed course with City and Guilds whereby we can actually teach you. We've got that taught element of those 11 modules. You'll work through those 11 modules and you'll provide journal entries for each module. We have prompts available to guide you as well as an exemplar journal. So you don't have to panic too much. What am I supposed to do? We've got a lot of support there. Then on Cyber EPQ, once you have completed the modules, you will then investigate and research and develop an aspect of what you've learned into a project. As with the normal EPQ, you will also be evidencing your time and project management and completing your production log. And there's various other elements. In our case, the project will be a 5,000 word essay, and there's various aspects of that that we suggest that you do. You will also need to have a recorded presentation, and you'll need to be able to reflect and summarise what you've been doing, not only in the presentation, but in the production log as well. With the Head Start course, as with the foundation and with the teacher training, again, you will engage with the modules and write journal entries and then do a reflective piece of writing. For these courses, you need approximately 30 guided learning hours. I've actually been doing the Cyber EPQ this year, because I wanted to brush up on my cyber knowledge as well. And it really does depend on the level of engagement. I suggest that you probably want to do a module a week. For some people, yeah, they can do it in maybe 4 hours. For me, I'm a bit old school, and so writing out lots of notes because I wanted to really make sure that I understood it well, it took me a little bit longer, but you can kind of get used to it, and it's very accessible, all of the material on the modules. So we have online sessions, we have quizzes, there are some games there, there's further reading. So there's a lot of content there. For the Head Start course, it can be used as an enrichment programme across year groups. It can also be used for students who perhaps don't actually have the time or would rather not write an essay. You can start the course at any time, and should you then wish to develop your knowledge further and do a project, you can easily transfer it onto the Cyber EPQ. The cost of that is £50 per student plus VAT. Should teachers be interested in rolling that out across year groups, I suggest you get in contact with me, and on the slide I have my contact details here as well. So as I said, we also have a foundation course. Now, the foundation course is geared towards students who are heading off to university to study computing, cyber or IT, and they'd like to do some background reading so that when they get to university, they actually know quite a bit. So we've had universities actually review our courses, and they've been very impressed by the structure of the course, the scope of it, the depth of knowledge that's available, and they see it as an excellent entrance level for going off to university. So that too is £50 plus VAT per student. As I mentioned briefly, we also offer free cybersecurity training for teachers. This is for all teachers who are supervising the cyber EPQ and would like to know a little bit more about cyber, maybe get ahead of their students as well as improve their own knowledge in cyber. Again, they'll be invited to complete their journals as they've been going along. Have a short reflective piece of writing at the end, and on completion they'll receive a certificate of completion which highlights all of the areas in cyber that they've covered. Again, approximately 30 guided learning hours, and it's very flexible with regards to dates. If you're interested in this, again, please do contact us at this email address. So, on the Moodle itself, we start off and we have a list of resources available. So we've got a very comprehensive learner's handbook. In the learner's handbook, that will tell you about what you'll be learning, what the expectations are, how to go about it, what the assessment objectives are, and basically anything you can think of, you'll find it in there, because I think it's very helpful to have all the information in one place. I've spoken briefly before about journal template with some prompts to help you as you're going through the modules. Once you've actually completed the modules on Cyber EPQ, you'll then be shifting your focus towards the production log. It's very similar to an ordinary EPQ production log. And both your journal entry, your production log, your essays, and any other evidence you've got, you'll submit in the submission area on the Moodle as well when it's appropriate time. We also like to make sure that our learners are particularly supported. So we've got a Deloitte discussion forum and a learner forum. So the Deloitte discussion forum is manned by our sponsors Deloitte. So if you've got a corporate cyber question that you would like to find out more about, then you can post something in the forum there and communicate. For the Learner Discussion Forum, you've actually got the opportunity to ask your questions to our cyber experts, which are PhD graduates from Royal Holloway University. We actually had the pleasure of Rory being one of our supervisors last year. Unfortunately, he moved away and yeah, anyway, so we also have supervisors area, which is restricted to supervisors, and we've also got very open door policy. If there's something that you feel that we can improve upon, we'd like to know, and so please get in contact with us, but we do send out feedback forms. And then we've got these other areas. We also suggest that you use either Google Chrome or Safari as our browsers, so that you get the best experience and you enable the pop-ups. So when you get onto the Moodle, this is what the homepage will look like, and you can engage with those modules by clicking onto each icon there. With regards to supervisors, as I've said, there's quite a bit of support for you too. For supervisors, we've got a supervisors forum, so you can communicate with your peers and other cyber experts as well. This is restricted only for the teachers, so you've got that support. But if it is something else that's more related to the qualification, you're very welcome to either have a chat with myself or our education officer. Drop us an email, whatever's most suitable for you. Then in the supervisors area, we also have a supervisor's handbook that reflects very much of the learner's handbook, although we have added guidance and support for you. We also provide support and resources for training for marking and standardization. This is across the 6th grade boundaries, so that you can have a really clear idea of when you're marking where projects should be falling into which grade boundary. Please note that Qufaro do not set the grade boundaries. This is down to city and guilds. Also, with an EPQ, it's about developing independent study skills. And so we have a list of resources that you can go to or direct students to. These typically with universities. Some universities invite you along to the university and you can make use of their resources. Some might even come into your school, or some might offer online courses as well. So there is a lot available there. For the project proposal and presentation, this is something that the supervisors will be taking a little bit more of a lead in. And so we provide some helpful direction to the supervisors as to how they can best support their students. As I've mentioned, we have exemplar projects available, and also we have a project title support, which are lists of projects from previous cohorts for students perhaps to look at and inspire them. So, you know, we're not saying that you have to do these particular projects, but perhaps you might like to see what other people have been doing. So for learners, as I've mentioned, this very comprehensive handbook, the different forums and all of these areas, they're all there for you. And of course, you are very welcome to get in contact with us as well, should you have any other questions. So there's a lot of added value to the Cyber EPQ. You'll be invited to graduation at Bletchley Park and a tour of the National Museum of Computing. All students who gain a grade B or higher will be granted membership of CySec. Last year, we were very fortunate. We had 85% of our students getting grade B or higher. And throughout the course, you'll also have access to immersive labs, which provide gamified online learning that reflect what you've been learning also throughout the course. So it's quite nice to get some practical experience in as well. Qufaro also acts as a portal to career opportunities and summer placements, and we'd invite our learners and graduates to join our alumni. There are various benefits there. We have a mentoring scheme. So this is basically a 6-month contract between the learner and a cyber professional who will share with you their experience, their knowledge, and perhaps give you those added tips that you may require to help you on the path, whether that is to go into employment, into apprenticeships, or off to university. I've talked a little bit about our Cyber Days of Learning. This has been with Deloitte. We are very fortunate not this February, the previous February, of taking 40 students there. We plan to have one this year as well, but it will be a virtual event, which I think could be better because we can actually invite even more students along. Within half an hour of putting this event on Eventbrite, all of the tickets were taken up immediately. So I think by having a virtual event, it will be even better because more people can participate. Also in our alumni, we provide invites to different cyber events, webinars, podcasts, masterclasses, and hackathons and things like that that you can participate in. So it's a really good place to actually go on to. Our alumni is an exclusive LinkedIn group, and we encourage you to have a professional profile, and so potential employers can see you and perhaps communicate with you. As I say, hopefully that will provide career opportunities and maybe summer placements as well. So with an EPQ, we have the traditional benefits of developing independent study skills, honing your research skills, whether that is for university or for the workplace. It's a great way of developing those skills. If you're interested in going off to university, it's worth up to 28 UCAS points, and universities typically offer lower grades to students who've done an EPQ, because it means that they're university ready. You already know how to do your research, how to do your referencing, your time and project management. And a lovely thing about an EPQ is it strengthens your personal statements, your profiles, as well as giving you an interview topic whereby you can go off to university or to employment and you will sound very knowledgeable because you've done so much research in that area that you've been studying. Further benefits of the Cyber EPQ is that Deloitte, they award prizes to the best essays. So it doesn't necessarily translate that whoever got the best grade will have the best essay, because there are so many things that are assessed throughout the Cyber EPQ. So Deloitte likes to take advantage of that fact, and so they read through maybe 12, 15 of the best essays and then award prizes. You're also able to join our alumni, which I've been talking about, and have this mentoring scheme that's in place that's also linked with our STEM ambassadors. If you wish, you can also become a Cyber EPQ ambassador. And as with the Head Start Foundation courses, you'll also get a certificate of completion which highlights the cyber elements of what you've been studying on the course. So the cost of the Cyber EPQ for school-based learners or anyone who's providing their own supervision, so if you're a homeschooled learner as well, it's £175 plus VAT. For independent learners, that means that you haven't got someone who can supervise you. We will provide that supervision, and unfortunately because of that there is that additional cost, and so that is £550 plus VAT. We've also developed local cyber, or encouraging local Cyber EPQ hubs, whereby maybe 3 or 4 sister schools might like to group together and have up to 25 learners and then split the cost of that between them. We're also working with ROCUs around the country, and for example, we're also putting in place some sponsorship for students. So for example, there's Yorkshire Cybersecurity Hub, which are going through having, putting students through the Head Start course, along with some mentoring and internship, and then doing the Cyber EPQ, and then hopefully that will lead to employment. We also have some other companies that sponsor students throughout the process as well. So that is something that if you're interested in, very happy to have that conversation with you. Perhaps if you can contact me personally, we can see what's available. Also very happy to give you free guest Moodle access for the courses so that you can explore them in greater detail. Should you be interested in that, please contact us at this email address. And this is the website that you may wish to visit, or there's the website address. This is actually our graduation from back in 2019 outside the museum with some of our students and teachers there. And then this is my contact information here. So please do get in touch with your queries. Be very happy to talk to you about any of the things that we've discussed today. And if you'd like further information, we're here. But you don't have to wait till then. We have time now for some questions. So I'm not sure if any questions have come through yet.
There was one question earlier. It was, would deciphering be easier for larger messages? I think that was intended for Rory.
Yep. So using, let's see, the cipher, yes, it'd be much easier to decipher a large message because you then start getting more frequency letters coming up. So short, simple phrases wouldn't necessarily show you very much variation in letter frequency. Say a larger one would have a far higher quantity of ciphertext for you to then start looking at frequency for. So yeah, longer messages definitely easier.
And then there's one there, I think, for Julia, which is, how can I find a local group?
So if you're referring to a local cyber EPQ hub, we suggest you can get in contact with us, but it's really about schools coming together and forming their own local cyber EPQ hubs. But please get in contact with me as to what area you're in, and I'll see whether we can set something up.
Did anybody else have any other questions? Pop them in the chat if you have. So how old do you have to be to do EPQ?
So we actually have people as young as 10 doing the EPQ because we don't like to turn anyone away. However, you need to be 14 to actually register with City and Guilds. And so what these students have done is they've started their projects, and when they turn 14, they'll submit them to City and Guilds, or we will submit their work to City and Guilds, because there are a lot of very talented young people there, and age shouldn't be something that has to define you. So, you know, if you've got that passion, that interest, we'll find a way to try and make it work. But as I say, we are limited by City and Guilds, that we cannot submit your work for that accredited course until you actually turn 14.
Can I also just say that, you know, helping supervise, was it last year before, you know, the course itself actually was really nice, you know, like the project and things really does help people get prepared for what life at university is going to be like, to doing independent research. And it's quite, you know, it's a nice sort of informal way to do that, I found. You know, you're encouraged to go away and do detailed research, look at news sources, you know, an extended piece of writing, you know, 5,000 words does sound like quite a lot, and it, you know, it is a reasonable amount. You know, they're not necessarily used to writing, so it sort of gets you into that flow that if you are planning on going to university, you know, these are sort of some of those skills that you're going to develop while at uni. Well, if you do it before, you've got sort of a nice step up. And also, you know, your supervisors were always pretty much there answering emails and things as well. So, you know, if you've ever got questions, you're always, you know, we're always happy to answer those. Even if it is simple things like, you know, I'm struggling to find some information, you know, do you know any good places to look for it? You know, things like that really, you know, make it very informal, but actually make it much easier and helpful as a learning experience.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say that feedback that we have from our students is that when they've really enjoyed going through the modules, but then they absolutely love being able to explore an area that they're particularly passionate about. And what better way to do it than through the cyber EPQ, because you're actually then able to develop your specialist knowledge in that area. And whether you're going off to university or you're going off for a job interview, you know, being able to talk about that is such a massive advantage for you.
And it doesn't have, you don't have to be, you know, stupidly techy or anything like that. You know, you can, anybody can do it. And the range of topics that I helped supervise, you know, I learned something from some of my projects because, you know, they're areas of cybersecurity that I've never looked at. But, you know, the project sort of opened my eyes to those as well, which was quite nice.
So fabulous. Unless there are any final questions, I think that should wrap it up. So thank you so much, Rory and Julia, for a brilliant overview of things going on in the cybersecurity world. I think, yes, it's exciting times. So thank you. Just to note to people, a recording of this webinar is going to be available on the CAS YouTube channel after this session. So keep an eye out for attendees. Will get an email after the event, sort of pointing them to where the resources are. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time to get a coffee before the next session. So you might be interested in artificial intelligence with David Walker, starting at 12. Okay.